Have you ever questioned if the reality you're living is real? Not metaphorically, but literally. What if everything you see, feel, everything you've ever believed is a projection, shaped not by truth, but by your expectations? Here's a simple thought experiment. Close your eyes, not now, but imagine it. Imagine that when you open them, you suddenly wake up in a completely different world. A world where the sky is green, people walk on ceilings, time flows backwards, and yet somehow everyone around you acts like it's perfectly normal. Would you question the world, or would you question yourself? The reason this matters is because you're already in a world like that, a world shaped by beliefs handed to you. Culture, language, childhood trauma, social conditioning. Every truth you think you know might not be true at all. There's a powerful concept in philosophy known as the brain in a vat. Imagine your brain was removed from your body, placed in a vat of nutrients, and connected to a supercomputer that simulated reality perfectly. You see what the computer tells you to see. You feel what it tells you to feel. How would you ever know that it wasn't real? You wouldn't. That's the point. And here's the disturbing part. How is that any different from what you're experiencing right now? When you look at a tree, you don't experience the tree itself. You experience electrical signals interpreted by your brain as tree. You don't hear the sound, you interpret vibration. You don't see light, you interpret wavelengths. Everything you call reality is filtered, translated, rendered. So what are you seeing? You're seeing a version of the world shaped by your nervous system. Now, let's take it one step deeper. What if I told you that your beliefs don't just shape how you see the world, but that they shape the world itself? Quantum physics suggests something terrifyingly beautiful, that the act of observing changes what is observed. Your attention isn't passive, it's creative. You've probably heard of the double-slit experiment. It showed us that particles behave like waves when unobserved, but become definite like particles when observed. In other words, consciousness doesn't just notice reality, it defines it. So the thought experiment isn't just about how you see everything. It's about how everything becomes what you expect it to be, simply because you believe it. You're not a passive passenger in this reality. You are the painter, the canvas, and the brush. And if that's true, ask yourself this. What parts of your world exist only because you believe they must? That job you hate, that identity you feel stuck in, that fear of rejection or failure or being seen. What if it's only real because you've observed it that way again and again until your mind locked it in as truth? This isn't about delusion. This is about liberation. When a child looks at the world, everything is possible. They're not limited by category. A spoon can be a rocket. A puddle can be an ocean. They haven't yet been told that things have to be a certain way. And because of that, they see more. Now imagine this. What if the biggest difference between a genius and a broken soul is that one kept imagining and the other stopped? Modern society teaches us that reality is fixed, that we must accept the world as it is. But what if that acceptance is the very thing trapping you? Let's shift the frame. Imagine waking up tomorrow with no memory. You don't remember your name, your job, your failures, your past. Nothing. All you know is the present moment. And you look around and ask, who am I? What would you become? Now here's the twist. That possibility still exists, even with your memory. The past doesn't imprison you. Your attachment to it does. We mistake identity for reality. But your identity, who you think you are, is just a collection of stories you keep telling yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm always anxious. I can't change. These aren't facts. They're loops, and loops can be broken. Here's a practical way to feel it. Tonight, before you sleep, try this. Imagine your life as if it were a simulation. Not in a sci-fi way, but in a metaphorical sense. Imagine that everything you expect to happen tomorrow happens only because you expect it. What would you change? Would you speak differently? Would you walk with more confidence? Would you create something instead of consuming? Would you love more deeply? The moment you realize that your expectations are not mirrors of reality, but constructors of it, is the moment you begin to wake up. You see, the biggest tragedy isn't that people suffer. It's that they suffer inside invisible cages. Cages they never chose. Cages they don't even realize are there. Some cages are made of fear. Others are built from past rejection. Others from comparison. But the bars are always made from the same metal, belief. Let me ask you something. When did you stop believing you were allowed to dream? Was it the first time you failed? The first time someone told you you weren't good enough? The moment you realized the world doesn't reward authenticity, but performance? Here's the secret. You can walk out of the cage, right now. But only if you're willing to question what put you in it. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "The menu is not the meal." Meaning, the ideas we hold about life aren't life itself. They're just descriptions, maps. And sometimes we spend so long studying the map that we forget to live the journey. Let that sink in. You are not your map. You are not your past. You are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness aware of those thoughts. And that awareness is free. When you begin to live from awareness, instead of autopilot, the world opens. You begin to see again, not through the dusty lens of survival, but with the clarity of possibility. There's a reason mystics, philosophers, and even scientists all reach the same conclusion in different languages, that what we call reality is fluid, malleable, subjective. So if it's subjective, if it bends to our attention, our expectations, and our perception, why not shape it consciously? Because here's what no one tells you. You don't have to keep being the version of yourself you've outgrown. Every morning is a reset. Every breath is a choice. And every moment is a doorway. The thought experiment is simple. What would change? If you stopped believing your thoughts were facts, what would change? If you stopped believing your thoughts were facts, you'd stop reacting to every fear. You'd stop chasing approval. You'd stop identifying with the voice in your head that says you're not ready, or that you'll fail, or that your dreams are too big. You'd begin to ask different questions. Not, what should I do? But what's calling me? Not, how do I fit in? But where do I belong? Not, what do they think of me? But what do I think of me? These are the questions that shift timelines. There's a parable in Eastern philosophy. A man walks through the forest and steps on a thorn. In pain, he blames the forest, the trees, the path, the thorn. He rages at the world for hurting him. But another man walks that same path, steps on the same thorn, and instead of blaming the forest, he asks, why was I not watching where I was walking? Same thorn, different awareness. Life doesn't change because the path changes. Life changes because you do. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people would rather suffer in a familiar pain than risk the unknown freedom. They'd rather repeat the same year of their life 80 times and call it a life than step into the terrifying beauty of real change. Why? Because freedom demands responsibility. And most people are afraid of that responsibility. But you're here, listening, thinking, feeling the edge of something deeper. That's not an accident. That's a sign, a signal, a ripple of awareness trying to wake something ancient in you, the part of you that remembers. You are not small. You were just taught to think small. You are not broken. You were just conditioned to forget your wholeness. You are not lost. You are just on the verge of remembering who you are. Let's go back to the thought experiment. You wake up one day in a strange world. Nothing is as you knew it. Everyone speaks in symbols. Trees breathe. The sky whispers. Time doesn't move, it spirals. Would you panic? Or would you explore? Would you try to force the world to match your old map? Or would you surrender to discovering a new one? This is the invitation of consciousness. To let go of the illusion that you know and to fall in love with mystery again. The greatest minds in history didn't just think better, they questioned deeper. Einstein once said, "The most important thing is not to stop questioning." Because questioning is awakening, so here's your practice. It's simple but not easy. Every time you hear a voice in your mind say, "I can't," pause. Ask, who said that? Where did it come from? Whose voice is that? Is it a teacher from your childhood? A parent? A failure from your past? A story you absorbed from society? And then drop it. Just for a moment. Imagine who you'd be without that thought. That is freedom. Not in theory, but in practice. And the more you practice it, the more your entire reality begins to shift. Not because the external world changes, but because the lens through which you see it becomes clearer. Imagine putting on glasses for the first time after a lifetime of blurred vision. Suddenly, the world was always beautiful, you just couldn't see it. The same is true of your mind. Your attention is the lens. Your beliefs are the prescription, and your awareness is the light. The most profound transformations often begin not with answers, but with better questions. What if nothing's wrong with me? What if I've just been carrying beliefs that don't belong to me? What if I'm allowed to rewrite the script? What if healing isn't becoming someone new, but remembering who I was before the world taught me to forget? These aren't just questions. They're spells. They rewire your perception. They open portals in your consciousness. They allow the soul to breathe again. And when you breathe from that place, everything changes. Your relationships feel different because you're no longer performing. Your goals shift because you're no longer chasing validation, but alignment. Your fear quiets, not because the world becomes safe, but because you become whole. Wholeness isn't perfection. Wholeness is permission to be fully here, fully alive, fully you. There's an ancient idea that enlightenment isn't about becoming more. It's about becoming less of what you're not. Less ego, less noise, less resistance, until only truth remains. So try this. For just one day, live as if your thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Live as if your past is a place you visited, not a place you live. Live as if your life is art, and you are both the artist and the masterpiece, because you are. And here's what no one teaches you in school. You don't need permission to wake up. You don't need a guru to validate your path. You don't need the world to understand your journey. All you need is the courage to begin again. One new thought, one new choice, one moment of awareness. That's all it takes, because small hinges swing big doors. And now, the most powerful question of all, if you knew, truly knew, that this life is not a rehearsal, what would you do differently today? Let that question live in you. Let it echo. Let it disturb you. Because discomfort is the birthplace of awakening. And if this video sparked something in you, if it made you question or feel or see differently, tell me in the comments. What belief are you ready to let go of? Your words might help someone else wake up too. And if this resonated with you, if it touched something real, give this video a like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more ideas that challenge the way we see reality. Because the mind is a labyrinth. But you were born to find the center. And you don't have to walk that path alone. You're not behind. You're right on time. Stay awake, stay curious. And remember, reality bends to those who dare to question it.